Welcome to the first video for algebra. In this video, we're going to look at a few different definitions of things and just do a couple of examples. Let's get into it. So before we begin, let's look at what is an algebraic expression. So when we're talking about algebra, we're talking about an expression or an equation where we don't know everything. So in this case, we have 4xy plus 3x minus 3. Now, x represents a number that we don't know, and y represents another number that we don't know. So algebra is all about us using what we call pronumerals to represent something that is unknown. So before we really can do any questions and examples, we need to have a couple of terms squared away. So as we go, you might want to pause this so that you can write down these definitions. The first one is a pronumeral. So a pronumeral is that letter part of the term or the expression, and that's the part that changes. Now, another word you might hear is variable. The second one is a coefficient. That's the number part of the term that's outside the front of our pronumeral. So if we had 4xy, our coefficient would be the 4 out the front of the pronumerals. It is not the number that has no pronumerals attached. And that's a group of letters and numbers that form an expression, and they're separated by an addition or subtraction sign. And we'll do some examples, but if there's an addition sign and then some numbers and letters and then another addition or subtraction sign, those numbers and letters are a term. Then we have our constants. This is pretty similar to our coefficient. It's the part of our it's the term, the part of our expression that doesn't have a pronumeral or an unknown part attached to it. Then we have an expression. So an expression is the statement that's made up of terms, operational symbols and or brackets, and it doesn't have an equal sign. So if we were to go back and look at that previous expression or previous sum, that's an expression because it didn't have an equal sign. If it was to be like x equals 4y plus 2, because it has that equal sign, we call it an equation. And what we say when there's an equal sign, we're saying that everything that happens on the right-hand side, the left-hand side of the equation is equal to everything on the right-hand side. So we're going to go through and label a few different parts of an expression and an equation. But before we do that, we just want to quickly talk about pronumerals and variables. So pronumerals are a letter or symbol like we learned in the previous slide just before. Now, so the pronumeral is actually what we see. It's the letter or the symbol. Now they represent what we call a variable, because a variable means it's something that can change. So we don't know exactly what number that represents, and it could change based on different circumstances. So let's label this expression. This is an expression because it doesn't have an equal sign. We're going to look at how many terms there are and what are the terms, the pronumerals, the constant, the coefficients, all of that. So the terms, we're going to start with our coefficient. So that's the letter at the front of our pronumerals. So we have 2 there, we also have 3. Then we have x, y, which are our pronumerals. So both of these, because they're all separated by an addition or subtraction, we have 3 different terms, and this is an example of a term. And then we have our constant. So our coefficient is any number out the front of a letter or a pronumeral, a symbol. So we have, on this term, we have 4 as our coefficient, and on this term we have 3 as our coefficient. Our pronumerals are our letters or symbols, and our constant is our number that does not have a pronumeral attached to it. And one last thing to check, we have here two sets of expressions. So this on this left-hand side is what we call an expression, and on the right-hand side we have an expression. But all together, this is called an equation. Okay, and so what we say is everything on this side of the equation is equal to everything on this side of the equation. So let's do an example. So for the following expression, 3a plus b plus 7, we're going to identify a, the number of terms in the expression. Now if we remember back, terms are broken up by addition or subtraction signs. So we have 3a is one term, b is another term, and 7 is another term. Okay, so we have 3 terms in total. Now we're going to identify any variables used in the expression. So these are any of the pronumerals. So anything that's not numbers or mathematical symbols. So we have a and b, so our variables are a and b. The coefficient of each term containing a variable. The coefficient again is the number outside the front of our pronumeral. So we have 3a, but there's a hidden one as well. At the front of this b is essentially the number 1 because we have one b on its own. So our coefficients here are actually 3 and 1. And our last one, any constant terms, which we have is 7, so our constant term is 7. Let's build an expression quickly. So we have 3 of the same coins, but you don't know what the coins are. So we have 3 coins, but we don't know what they are. They could be 20 cents, they could be $1. All we know is that they're the same coin. So we have 3 times an unknown coin. Now, we can write this as an expression, and we say 3 times y, because we can pick any pronumeral to go here, and I've chosen y. So we have 3 times y, and y represents the unknown coin. That could be 20 cents, it could be $1, it could be $2. We don't know. Now, when we have a multiplication 3 times a pronumeral, only a number times a pronumeral, we can actually remove that multiplication sign. And so we end up with 3y. But this is the same as 3 times y. So let's build some expressions here. So write each rule as a formula using A for in and B for out. So anytime we see our word in, we're going to replace it with A. And anytime we see the word out, we're going to replace it with B. So this first one, out is going to be B and in is going to be A. So we're going to end up with B equals 4 times A. Now, when we are talking about that multiplication, like I just said in that previous example, we always put the number, the coefficient, in front of our pronumeral. So this should really be B equals 4A. Our next one, our out and our in, so we say B equals A divided by 5. Now it matters because it matters what order we, so we have to keep it in the same order. So A divided by 5, because 6 divided by 2 is not the same as 2 divided by 6. So it's really important with division that they stay in the same order. So we end up with B equals A divided by 5. A over 5. This line, remember, means divided by. Let's write an expression for each of these statements. So the sum of A and 3. So this word sum means to add together. So we end up with A plus 3. 9 less than B means that we have B take away 9. Twice the value of C is 2 times C. Remembering we can remove that multiplication sign, so we end up with 2C. And D divided by 5 can be written as D over 5. One last example. We're going to simplify these expressions by either removing any unnecessary multiplication sign or converting that division into what would look essentially like a fraction. So the first one, 4 times brackets x plus 2. The way that we write this is 4 brackets x plus 2. Okay, so this means 4 times x plus 4 times 2. Then we have our next one, which is x plus 3 divided by 5, and we write that as x plus 3 over 5. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, if you have any questions, please make sure you ask. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks, guys.